Donald Trump is having a psychotic meltdown as it is all falling apart for him. He is terrified of being impeached if and when Democrats take control of the House, and how Democrats are also favored to take control of the United States Senate. Throughout yesterday evening, Donald Trump was posting, again, deranged stuff. He was posting Natalie Harp and Caroline Leavitt, incredible patriots, all the way back in 2021. And he posts some weird interview with them, and each was more deranged than the next. Then Donald Trump does this post that's a gigantic paragraph where he attacks Tucker Carlson and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massie and says they're all losers. They're three losers. And then he says, praise be to Allah at the end of it. I'll talk a little bit more about that. Earlier in the day yesterday, Donald Trump posted in the morning how he was going to be doing a deal with foreign countries to bring in their beef at discounted prices to undercut American ranchers and to destroy American ranchers' business. And he was going to do this deal, 25% cheaper foreign beef, and our ranchers here were like, what the hell is this guy doing? And then last night, we learned that the trade talks between the United States and Canada blew up. I did a video about this last night. Donald Trump, Howard Lutnick, Jameson Greer, and I'm hearing this was really driven also by Lutnick and Trump, but particularly Lutnick as well, trying to bully Canada into basically surrender, you trying to change the terms and trying to, really attack Canada. And Prime Minister Carney said, no way. Let's bring our negotiators back to Ottawa. The Canadian negotiators left. Prime Minister Carney announced Canada's going elbows up and is prepared to fight. And then the Trump regime is like, what do you mean you're leaving? What do you mean you're leaving? And this is the United States again continues to attack Canada's sovereignty, but Canada stood strong. So Donald Trump, terrified of being impeached, as you know, he was, ranting and raving like a lunatic in South Carolina about being impeached. He was like, I'm going to lose everything that I worked for is going to be lost. If we lose the midterms, they're going to impeach me. Listen to what he said. Play this clip.
Years ago, they're going to flee our country. I'm going to be impeached. They're going to impeach me. They have no idea why. I saw today a congressman said on one of the shows, we're going to impeach President Trump. We're going to impeach. Oh, really? Why? The person was asking. A neutral commentator for a change. I like neutral commentators. Oh, I see. You're going to impeach him. Why? Well, I don't know.
He went on to say, I don't want to be impeached. Why are they doing this to me? I have no clue why. I'm just trying to be a good person. What are you talking about, you lunatic? You are a war criminal. You are a sexual predator. You are covering up child sex trafficking rings. What in the world are you talking about? Here, let's play this clip.
Yeah, it's a disgusting thing. So you're going to lose everything. I'm going to have to go through impeachment. These are lunatics. These are people that are vicious, violent, that weaponize the justice system, the Justice Department, and they want to destroy our country. They want to see that our country fail. They want our country to fail, and we can't let that happen. You have to get out and vote in the midterms.
Here's the video that Donald Trump posted late last night, this 2021 conversation between Natalie Harp and Caroline Leavitt. And you know that Donald Trump picked Harp in to go on the catering container with him when he was so afraid that Iran was going to blow up old Air Force One. And then Caroline Leavitt announced her resignation, and there's a slew of high-level Trump regime White House officials who are all resigning. Everywhere Donald Trump looks, it seems that there's another resignation every single day. But Caroline was one of the more recent resignations. But this is the video that Donald Trump posted of them back in 2021. And you can see it's just utterly deranged.
But there were shenanigans that went on. Hillary Clinton won it only by 2,700 back in 2016. Biden somehow beat even her margin by tens of thousands, even as President Trump gained like over 20,000 votes. What went on in New Hampshire, and what can New Hampshire do to make it secure going forward for 2022 and 2024?
A lot went on in New Hampshire. Let me tell you, Natalie, I am running for federal office here because I want to ensure that the people of my great state have a voice at the state level and at the federal level. In 2020 in New Hampshire, there were more than 200,000 new voter registrations. By the way, we have a population of 1.3 million. So you tell me if that sounds right.
And speaking about utterly deranged, well, you have whatever the hell's going on with Natalie Harp and whatever. You have Melania Trump posting photos of herself in front of the Grand Prix race cars over here, the IndyCar race car, fostering the future, and she's making some weird pose. I mean, look, while the American people are suffering, can't afford rent right now, can't afford groceries, can't afford gas, right? Gas all-time high in the nation's history. National average right now about $4.11 a gallon, $5.50 a gallon nationwide for diesel. But if you're living in a state like I live in California, it's probably much higher for you than that. The crack spread 3-2-1 up $102 a barrel. Price of diesel approaching $200 a barrel. Price of crude approaching $100 a barrel. Right, the crack spreads the delta between your crude and your refinery diesel. That's why they call it the 3-2-1, three barrels. But I won't geek out on you with oil. But good to know that Melania is in front of $1 million sports cars and vehicles and posing like the cover of Vogue that she was never on. By the way, in Canada, they are mercilessly mocking Donald Trump and his despicable regime. I saw this video right here of Carney knocking Donald Trump out. Here, play this clip. Perhaps my favorite premier in Canada of Manitoba, Wab Kinew. He was asked yesterday before the trade talks officially collapsed. Remember, I showed you 2 days ago the Wab Kinew interview where he was just unleashing on Donald Trump. And that's the sentiment of most Canadian people I speak to, is what Wab Kinew was saying 2 days ago. I did a whole video on that. But then yesterday, a reporter, and like the Canadian reporters are very much like kind of corporate news in the United States, like they're not all that great. And they, especially in Canada, they often take the perspective of like, how can we appease America? And the Canadian people are so not with that. It's why Midas Canada, led by Charlie Angus, I think has been so revolutionary and so important to really focus on what the Canadian people are experiencing, not this corporate Canadian media ecosystem that's toxic, not quite as toxic as our ecosystem here in the United States, but our Canadian viewers, the Maple Midas elbows up, know exactly what I'm talking about. So a reporter asks Wab Kinew, by calling Donald Trump, he's the premier of Manitoba, like a governor for those here in the United States, but a little different. By calling Donald Trump Jeffrey Epstein's best friend, do you think this could damage the relationship? And Kinew's like, yeah, I don't care. It's true. They were best friends. It's an objective fact. Here, play this clip.
And by calling Trump Epstein's best friend, this could potentially damage relationship.
It's true. Everyone saw that Entertainment Tonight video, the two of them together, and that was before AI. It's true.
More from Kinew right here. A reporter asks, so I'm not asking you to recount the comments. Are you concerned, though, that you just may harm the trade negotiation? And Kinew's like, no, I don't care. Here, play this clip.
I'm not asking you to recount the comments. I'm just asking how concerned you are about the potential effect on the trade negotiations.
Not concerned.
Now, here's the little weasel boy, Jameson Greer, after it was announced that Prime Minister Carney withdrew the Canadian negotiators, that let's get back to Ottawa. The United States is acting in bad faith. As Prime Minister Carney has said, no deal is better than a bad deal. As Warren Buffett said, and Wab Kinew also reiterated, you can't do a good deal with bad people. You can't do good deals with them. And these are bad people. The Trump regime are scumbags. I mean, they're covering up child sex trafficking rings. They're covering up the Epstein files. Like, these are horrific vile piece of trash human beings. But watch this little weasel, Jameson Greer, after it was announced that the negotiations were off, even though Donald Trump announced there was like a deal the day before. Play this clip.
Canada declined to finalize the trade deal under the terms agreed earlier this week. Despite the U.S. offer to Canada to receive the best treatment of any major exporter to our market, new demands and walkbacks of other commitments by Canada have upended the careful balance reached in the past days.
Oh, by the way, while you have the IndyCar racing in Washington, D.C., it was also announced, though, that the Bahrain Grand Prix canceled. It will now be moved to the Spirit of Bahrain is in Malaysia right now. It's the Spirit of Bahrain because the United States security umbrella in the region has collapsed and Iran has been able to strike whatever it wants of Bahrain, and Bahrain knows it's not safe. Tourism crashing there, in all of these U.S. allied countries that thought they would be protected with U.S. military bases, but that ain't happening. Speaking about the security umbrella breaking down, Tom Barrack, the United States ambassador to Turkey, did this interview with Marian Nawfal the other day. He's also the special advisor to Syria. And as the ambassador to Turkey, he opined on Netanyahu's regime striking the airport in Syria that's next to Turkey. And then Netanyahu's been threatening Erdogan a lot lately and saying, we, destroyed that airport. We believe, a lot of people in Netanyahu's regime are saying Syria is like Gaza on steroids. It's our next Gaza, is what a lot of people in the Netanyahu regime are saying. And they're also been saying a lot of threatening things about Erdogan, the president of Turkey. And so you have Tom Barrack saying, I don't know, maybe this will be the next World War III. We'll see. So this is Barrack's Trump's guy. So the fact that he's out there saying, maybe we'll be in World War III, maybe we won't, we'll see. This is Trump's ambassador to Turkey and the special advisor to Syria. Here, play this clip.
We have all of the discussions going on. Is it somebody going to invoke Article 5? The Turkish military is strong. They're courageous. They're very well equipped. They know what they're doing. Could this be World War III? I think our opinion is anything could be World War III from an unintended act if you just looked at World War II. And that's what I think we're all trying to do. And you do a great job in elevating the level of discourse and dialogue so that all of us can start understanding. And thank you for that. But our belief is there's no intention at all to do any of those things.
Also, you have Tom Barrack recounting a conversation that Trump had with him recently. And he said that Trump asked Erdogan, president of Turkey, why didn't you ever just take Syria? You should have just taken it. And Erdogan said to Trump, why would I? It's not my country. They're their own country. Why would I just take their country? And the fact that Trump was telling Erdogan, you should have seized Syria, and Erdogan saying to Trump, I'm not going to do that. That's another country. And having to explain that to Trump, it also explains what Trump's been trying to do with Canada, to be very clear, and why it's been so important that Canada goes elbows up and push back and punch back the way they have. And Prime Minister Carney's been leading the way. And I want to give a hat tip, though, to the great work of Charlie Angus at Midas Canada. He's been heroic as well. Play this clip of Tom Barrack. Let's play this other clip.
And by the way, full stop here. You've heard President Trump say before in public, he's asked President Erdogan, why didn't you just take Syria on December 8th? If you were instrumental in helping them, why didn't you just take it? President Erdogan responded, because we don't want it. We want Syria to be a sovereign and independent country as a canvas and a blanket in the middle of this very difficult zip code. Saudi Arabia feels the same. Of course, Israel feels the same.
And then you had Donald Trump on the tarmac before that ridiculous event he did in South Carolina with Darlene Graham, when Donald Trump was saying, I think we'll have a deal with Canada tonight. I think we have one. Wrong. Play this clip.
But they're not ready to make the right deal, in my opinion. Yeah.
With Canada, have you come to a deal there?
Pretty much, I think so. We'll see. I've dealt with the Prime Minister, have a good relationship. And yeah, we have to take care of our farmers. The farmers are very important to me. And the deal with Canada is moving along, and we should be able to have a deal with Canada. We're also starting on a new deal with Mexico. A much better deal for the United States. I only make good deals. Much better deal for the United States, both with Canada and Mexico. Thank you very much.
President, did you correct that sir?
And then Donald Trump was asked about the beef deal that he announced earlier. So you said you did a deal, Donald. Which countries did you do the deal with? Because you certainly pissed off American ranchers because you said you were going to undercut them by bringing in foreign beef at a 25% discount, and you never alerted the ranchers here. You want to explain to our ranchers or to the American people where this beef is coming from? How about even just from a health perspective? Don't you think the American people might want to know where you're bringing in this very, very ultra cheap beef from, apparently, that you can undercut an actual market by 25%? Also, doesn't this sound very much like communism? But it's like even the most warped form of communism. It's communism to help foreign countries hurt the United States and undercut your own people and your own. It's central planning for other countries in your country. It's like the most deranged stuff imaginable. Any event, here, play this clip of what he's saying.
Mr. President, on the beef deal, which countries did you make that deal with? What are the sources
Which
of
deal?
the beef deal?
I don't want to say which countries, but there are a few countries, but they're going to be sending in the highest quality beef, and it's something that we need.
Because I don't want to say who I did the deal with. I'm going to keep it super secret. Yeah, I can't tell the American people who I did the deal with. Okay, that's bizarre. And then finally, Donald Trump was asked about $40 trillion debt, which has been hitting the United States. Didn't you say that you were going to reduce the debt? You had Doge and you were going to fix it all and it was going to be great. You're responsible for like 30% of all of the U.S. debt. You're responsible to more debt by far than any other president. It's not even close. And Donald Trump, like the con artist, fraud, scumbag that he is, what does he say? He goes, well, we'll just grow our way out of it. Our growth has been so good that we will just grow our way out of the debt. Our growth has not been so good, okay? Our growth has been anemic under you. We barely have GDP that's been growing. By the way, for most of the economy, for the average American person, 99% of the American people, we are in a massive recession or even a depression for most Americans. The rich people have made a lot of money and AI and data centers, and that's propped up the GDP to like 1.5%, 1.7% growth. But that's not some like incredible growth. People talk about the K-shaped economy. The rich have gotten richer. The poor are getting much poorer. And the middle class, there is no middle class in the United States anymore. But sure, tell us we're going to grow our way out of it, Donald. Here, play this clip.
Mr. President, national debt, as you know, it surpassed $40 trillion. Have you been discussing what to do about that?
Well, I have, and there's been a problem for 35 years. And what we have now that we've never had before, we had a pretty good piece of it in my first term, as you know, is we have tremendous growth. And the way you take care of debt is with growth. And we have tremendous growth. We've never had growth like we have right now. The growth will take care of that very easily.
Mr. President, 700.
Question about it.
Mr. President, on the beef deal,
So utterly sickening and ridiculous. Let me know what you think. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 7 million subscribers. Pre-order WTF America now. Thanks everybody so much for watching. We're so grateful for you. We're so grateful for the Midas Canada, the Maple Midas. We're grateful for all our international audience. Just thank you from the bottom of my heart. Let's keep on fighting together, okay?
Hey, if you want the full story, how democracy got here and how we take it back, pre-order our new book, WTF America, today. Just scan the QR code or click the link in the description. Let's do this.
Donald Trump is destroying the so-called absolute immunity that he was given by the Supreme Court, which was outrageous that they would give him absolute immunity to begin with, but leave it to Donald Trump to set fatal traps for himself in cases that he's filing and in his own action that he's bringing and in the arguments that he's having the DOJ make. And I'll give you one example, then I'll give you another example. Example number one. The Trump regime says that there's no standing at all for anybody to challenge his ballroom construction because he's already destroyed the East Wing. And when you destroy something, even if you engage in overtly illegal conduct, then there is no judicial remedy in terms of injunctive relief to bring back that which is already destroyed. So the Trump regime's trying to make a standing argument to continue building the golden ballroom after demolishing the East Wing by saying it doesn't matter if what we do is illegal, because once we start building, there's no standing. So we win this case, right, Judge? Because there is no standing for somebody to challenge it. We can't rebuild it. So let's just say, I think it's a ridiculous argument, but if you win that case on a standing ground, you may want to play this out about the second and third or fourth level consequences by saying you're maybe engaging in illegal conduct by ripping down the East Wing. And if you're overtly engaging in illegal behavior, then you fall outside the outer perimeter of absolute immunity. Now, there's another example of this when it comes to this slush fund, this $1.8 billion slush fund for the January 6th insurrectionists. And while the Trump regime now is saying, look, we're not doing this case anymore, it's no longer a judiciable issue because we've said we're not doing anything with the slush fund. Well, if you are now starting out with this $10 billion lawsuit that you filed against the IRS in your personal capacity, not in an official government capacity, sure, maybe the Trump DOJ is saying we're not now putting together the slush fund because the American people were absolutely livid by it. But Trump brought the very underlying case, not as the president of the United States, for which he can invoke immunity if it's an official act. I mean, he could potentially invoke it, even though we'd all be like, that's horrific that he can invoke it. If he were to say, for national security reasons, I'm creating this, or for my ability to faithfully exercise the Constitution, I'm doing, when you can utter those magic words, this Supreme Court, which I think is the worst decision imaginable, gives you cover. But when you say in your private capacity, hey, I'm the Trump org, I'm Donald Trump, the individual, not the president, and I'm engaging in this behavior, you don't have the immunity. And it gets worse because then in these cases, the Trump regime comes up with the most outlandish arguments to try to win a motion or a case, which, again, they're not looking at the levels of consequences. So when it comes to the ballroom case, for example, the Trump lawyer contended that no lawsuit could stop Trump from tearing down the Statue of Liberty if he wanted to, because even if you do such an illegal thing like tear down the Statue of Liberty, it's already torn down, you've already destroyed it, and therefore there's no standing to sue or to have any remedy against Donald Trump or the Trump regime for doing it. For real, this was an argument before the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals regarding the ballroom, and one of Trump's main arguments is not what he's putting on social media, or he's like, this case is about some woman walking her dog who's angry about The View. No, what Trump's actually arguing before the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, among other things, but the main argument, or one of the main arguments, there's no standing for this DC Preservation Society, historical preservation group to sue because we've already started it. We've already destroyed the East Wing, so therefore there is no remedy. So a judge said, okay, so what if the government decides to very quickly bulldoze the Statue of Liberty? What if Trump just destroys it? And then the people whose ancestors, that was the first thing they saw coming to this country, the government moved too fast. And the people whose ancestors are on there, they sued and they said, you just ripped down the Statue of Liberty. We have standing. What do you think can happen? So nothing can be done. And the DOJ lawyer, with a straight face, told the panel at the DC Circuit, nothing can be done. Nothing can be done. The Statue of Liberty would go down. They're trying to win a standing argument, which I think they're going to lose. But they're making a broader admission, in my view, regarding just outright criminality. Once we destroy it, then you don't have a remedy against us? Well, there may be a remedy in the future. Harry Litman from the Talking Feds YouTube channel is here to help us break it down. Harry. Great to see you right here. And this is what we're seeing also. I mean, the Trump regime and Donald Trump individually, they do things so recklessly, impulsively, in my view, criminally also in a lot of cases, and giving you my First Amendment opinion, but, and then they race to whatever they think the argument is, but then they kind of trap themselves in these broader arguments that have deep consequences. And you're like, that's your logical conclusion there, that you could destroy the Statue of Liberty if you want to, and then there's no remedy? Harry, what do you make of it all?
Yeah, look, I first want to make this general non-legal or broader point, which is, to build the ballroom and completely alter the skyline and landscape of the nation's capital, or to give out $1.8 billion to January 6th offenders, or to give out $100 million or more to Trump. Those are serious issues, and the arguments that they're making in each and every one of them is basically to demur, the lawyers would say, which is to say it doesn't matter about the friggin' illegality, because this is such a sort of cynical and nasty overall strategy. There's no standing. You can't find anyone to properly challenge it. Maybe Congress could do something. Oh, we've got Congress in our back pocket. Never mind about that. So the general approach of doing stuff that completely, not just completely bulldozes Congress's role, but really is just a terrible thing for the American people, or at least the American people ought to be able to decide. Their strategy is just standing this precise, nobody can bring it. Okay, and now as to what Yaakov Roth, who was handling this in the D.C. Circuit, said to Judge Millett, we could tear down the Statue of Liberty. You know what? He had thought it through, and he knows Millett is very smart judge. Also Garcia and Noemi Rao on the panel. We can talk about that more. But he knew what the argument he was making, that's where he would have to go. This is like the Navy SEALs hypothetical that seemed so conclusive in the immunity case, and then lo and behold, the Supreme Court just basically said, oh, we don't care. The idea that, yep, they could bulldoze the Statue of Liberty, nothing you can do about it, was really the kind of concession he had to make, trying to win over lawyers, because if he said otherwise, then they're dead. Third, it's exactly the strategy. One day, while and this judge, by the way, Judge Leon, George W. Bush appointee, and he had first said to the plaintiffs, National Historic Trust, you haven't done it quite right. And while that time was happening, they were just, sending out people to build a big hole in the ground, and then saying, too late now. But that is really false. What's too late, you could say, is that by the very hole they've dug, they've created security problems that now have to be shored up. And Leon said that, the DC Circuit said that, but they're really trying to say, so now it's too late. We get to build the whole ballroom to handle security. That's not the case, and that's exactly what's in front of the DC Circuit. If they really come and say to them, you screwed up, you trusted us, and now there's a hole in the ground, and look, it's a terrible security risk. By the way, there was already a secure compound there in the East Wing before. Let's set that aside, though. They're saying, okay, you bastards, you did it, so make that part safe. But that doesn't mean you get to build the entire ballroom. But and then I think we're going to talk separately about what they're saying in the slush fund. But it's the same idea. It might be illegal as the day is long, but too bad nobody can argue it. So, we're really talking about cynical ways of sabotaging the very ability of anyone to just try to bring up the issues. And by the way, I don't think it's going to work here. We'll talk about it, but among other things, it's been a good couple weeks in certain ways, and in the actual popular pushback, the, Mighty Millions and Fed heads and others, because the Senate declined to give all the money for the ballroom or to sort of fold that into their vote-a-rama, similar to the fund. But that's really when they pull this kind of dastardly move of, ha, 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 you can't sue us. Really, then it's critical to build political opposition. And all you have to do is make people understand what the hell they're doing. And that's why this question, page 15, everyone, of the Patty Millett Roth transcript. Yep, they say they can destroy the Statue of Liberty. That's a soundbite that ought to stick, and people ought to understand the principle that they're advocating for the temporary holders in the people's name of government power. But while we're here temporarily, we can ransack the entire Capitol and, burn Atlanta, as it were. That's a foul, not to mention, I think, lawless vision of what it means to take care that the law, in the people's name, that the laws be executed faithfully.
Yeah, and I think that kind of rhetorical tool used by the federal judge needs to be used more. You need to put these Trumpers, and by the way, I think Democrats need to do this more when they have witnesses on the stand, rather than listening to themselves talk and ask the questions. Ask the.
You really are a revolutionary.
Yeah. And bring their argument to the logical conclusion. Got it. So what you're saying is you can destroy the Statue of Liberty and there won't be standing. Yes. Okay. Got it. I mean, and you have to kind of get the full extent of their position that way. And I was glad the judge did it. Harry.
I did too. I just want a quick point. When they're in front of Congress, they're also subpoena under oath. But when they field questions like that, they bob and weave and insult the questioners, etc. That's the kind of function that courts still serve. You can't say, Patty Millett, you're stupid. And, you have to answer the judge.
I've got my book, Patty Millett, right here.
Courts really still matter. Yeah.
It turns out that in 8th grade, did you say, I mean, that's what his people do. And that's why they didn't want Pam Bondi to be under oath and before a camera. And I did a whole breakdown of a video where I showed that, that she was basically saying that Bondi said, I'm not going to answer any questions before my time as Attorney General. So anything 2024 before, I won't answer. Okay. What about 2025? I will not answer any communications as Attorney General with anybody in the executive branch, including Donald Trump. Okay, so that means you're not going to have any communication. Okay, well then what about just your general knowledge about the search queries that were made? That's not a communication. That's not before 2024. Your general knowledge of search queries regarding the Epstein files. Were you trying to flag information that may have had Trump's name on it? That's not I don't recall. Got it. Not 2024 or before. You executive privilege. You don't recall. Those are your 3 answers to all of those questions. It's why what you and I do is really important in getting this knowledge out to show people this is their schemes. This is the tools. This isn't some hyperbolic debate where one side yells and the other side yells. And let me explain to you how this is going. Anyway, thanks, Harry, for all you do.
Thank you, Ben.
Everybody subscribe to Harry Litman's YouTube channel.